surprised you didn't bring your nut mounts.
The balls?
Yeah.
I know, man.
Good handle for it.
Yeah, that's just the best way to angle the mic towards the mouth.
Yeah. You recording?
Yeah.
Perfect. That's good.
Good way to start it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, we start the podcast out by having to cut shit right off the bat. How you doing?
I'm great, man. How
Good.
are you today, dude?
Good. So Brice Suhay?
Yeah.
All right. We've known each other for a long time, like at least, 8 or 10 minutes?
Yeah, I was going to say years, but minutes works too.
Yeah, it seems like years already.
Yeah.
It feels like it. No. Andy Moeckel over here from Bozeman.
Yeah.
You live in Bozeman too?
Yeah, I do. Yep.
All right. So what are you guys doing over here?
Chasing some bears. Yeah,
Chasing bears?
It's a little bit more than that. So Brice runs Hounds
Okay.
out of Bozeman. And we linked up 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, I think so.
About 2.5 years ago. And I got to go on cat hunts with you last year.
And a lot more this year.
And a lot more this year. Last year, maybe we did like 5 or something
Yeah.
like that. And this year, probably more around like 10.
10 or 12. You probably
10 or-
saw 10
yeah.
or 12 lines in truth this
Yeah.
season. So
And Brice's dogs, I mean, I've gotten to run with quite a few different sets of hounds. Brice has some of the best hounds that I've seen out of all of the different hounds that I've ever been around. And came out here to link up with some hound hunters out here that are running bears.
Yeah.
And
they actually bred my male dog,
Yeah.
my lead dog.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, he came out of their stuff.
Oh.
So I'd never hunted with them before, but it's been
we're
a lot of
actually,
fun.
we're also running with his brother, right?
Yeah.
And they're like almost spitting images of each
they
other
look
aside from
identical.
color. It's
Really?
the coolest thing
Yeah.
ever. And they're both riding on the top of the box together on the strike rack. It's absolutely
Same
awesome.
mannerisms.
Everything.
Everything.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So how old is he? How old's your dog?
3.5, 4.
Okay.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
So you've been running cats, but you've not run dogs or bears before?
I've run some bears, but just not a ton. I only got 2 dogs, and which is great for lion, but for bear, it just doesn't do as well. You need a little bit more pressure put on them to get them up.
Oh, that surprises me.
Yeah.
Really?
They'll run a lot further than the cat will.
Really?
Yeah.
That actually surprises me because I've chased bears on foot barking at them and they've gone right up the tree.
No way.
Yeah. we did that quite a bit living in Lincoln.
Yeah.
We'd see a bear and we'd sneak up on them and then just run at them barking and they'd go right up a tree.
That's crazy.
And then we did it at the house because, like, you'd walk out and there'd be a bear, like, on our deck or something like that, you know, in the garbage or, you know, whatever. They're making their rounds and they're getting into shit they shouldn't be. And you just go running, like, off through the trees after them barking, and they would go right up a tree. So I've never bear hunted behind hounds, so I just kind of assumed they actually treat super easy because they did with people like my buddy and I.
Yeah, typically like a cat, once the dogs jump a cat, they run the track, they jump it. Typically a cat's up a tree within 500 yards. Sometimes bears will run 10 miles.
Really?
They have big lungs on them, bigger heart. If you look at a lion's lungs and heart, they're smaller, so they just get tired so fast. Usually you get to a lion tree and they'll be panting if they ran quite a ways, and bears can just put on the boosters and
I shouldn't
run.
say this because it's not legal, but I'm pretty sure statute of limitations is up. But I was out chasing coyotes with my buddy and I in high school. We used to chase coyotes with our pickups all the time on his ranch out by like Wolf Creek out going towards Great Falls.
Yeah.
And so we would chase coyotes. Well, one day we were out and we saw way out in the field, grain field, we saw, something kind of running across it, trotting across it. And so we're like, oh, a coyote. So we take off with our pickups and we're flying across this field and we come over the hill and it's a mountain lion in the middle of the wide open. It was basically between the Dearborn River and the mountains. And, we're 16, 17 years old. So of course it's hammered down on the throttle. And we went to chase that cat and it within, less than 100 yards, just laid down in the middle of the field, wide open. And I have pictures. I need to find them somewhere. It was back in the old days of developing film, but I have photos somewhere of this cat laying in this grass, and he's just got his eyes above the grass, and he's just looking at us. And we parked our pickups probably 40 yards from him, and he was just kind of sitting there panting. But he didn't run like at all, hardly. Like a coyote will just keep finding gears and will run forever and keep getting faster and faster, it seems like. But we just watched him for a while, kind of messed around, and then we just left. We didn't shoot him or anything, but it was just like middle of the summer, completely random. So to your point, as far as like how far they run, he didn't run at all.
Yeah.
Like we thought it would be fun, and it wasn't. Like
Coyotes are more fun.
Oh yeah, coyotes are a blast. Yeah, that was a wild time. Broke my buddy's nose.
I've seen him run on snowmobiles a few times.
My buddy broke his nose on the dash of my truck, hitting a pivot where the pivot track in a field, the pivot like wheel line pivot track gets really deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, hit it about 55, 60, and he was in the middle seat and nothing really to hang on to, and smacked his face on the dash of the truck. But we killed the coyote. It was fun.
Can't beat that.
Anyway, that was totally off the beaten path. But, yeah, I broke my tie rod on my truck at one point. Hit an irrigation ditch going really fast. But anyway, it was a good time back in the old.
How'd you end up in the irrigation ditch, Josh?
Well, it was just a small ditch
Didn't
going across the field. Like, I think when they flood irrigate, it wasn't like a big ditch, you know, it's just one that would like ruin your day at 70 miles an hour. So, yeah. Anyway, we had a lot of fun. But anyway, so back to running, because I'm curious about the running of bears in Montana is actually pretty new.
Last year was the first year.
Okay, so this is year number 2.
There's only certain portions in the state that we can actually chase them and run with dogs.
I didn't know that.
They limited it quite a bit. Basically, areas where there's not a lot of grizzlies or no grizzlies we can chase, and then all the rest is off limits. So,
oh really?
Yeah, so pretty small portions.
Would a grizzly go up a tree if the dogs were after him?
They'll tree.
Yeah.
Not as.
How do you know? Don't say. Statute of limitations probably aren't up on that one.
A lot of other states with grizzly bears, you can run dogs.
Can you?
And, yeah. Like Idaho does. They don't have limitations. And
yeah.
It happens.
You know, it's interesting because there's kind of a little controversy behind that, like people, whether they think it's ethical to even run cats, right, or bears and whatnot.
Hound hunting.
With hounds, yeah, running them. And, you know, in my mind, it makes the most sense. Like, we've all been bear hunting. I know for myself, I've been bear hunting or just hunting in general, elk hunting, you have a bear tag, and all of a sudden you see a bear, and you're like, oh, shit, that looks like a big bear. And you have these people that make a mistake, and they shoot this nice big bear, and they walk up, and it's got cubs.
Or it's the size of their lab.
Or it's, yes.
I mean, that's like that's like probably 60% of the bears that get killed in Montana are 100 pounds or smaller, because guys don't know how to sit and judge bears. And it's pretty easy to judge a bear when they're 20 feet in a tree.
Yeah.
And
my 14-year-old shot a bear with his bow last year behind my house back here, and he was by himself, and I was on the phone because he called me to ask me if he could shoot it, and I was like, yeah, if it doesn't have cubs. So he set his phone down on speakerphone, and I hear the bow go off, just whack, and he starts yelling. Awesome. I'm like, what the hell's happening? And he's like, I killed it. And I was like, awesome. I'm like, is it a big one? He's like, yeah, it's a big bear. I'm like, all right, bud. So go walking back there to go find him, and like walk up, and I'm like, dude, that's a little bear. He's like, well, because she was like snapping his jaws at him, and because he was only 10 yards from her. And she's like snapping her jaws at him, kind of woofing at him. And he's like, well, she looked a lot bigger when she was mad. I'm like, yeah, if you're standing there with a bow and you're 14 years old,
it's a big bear.
It's a big bear. Yeah. It's a bear. Yeah. But what I was getting at is, you know, people make mistakes. Like, you know, you got to sit there and study a bear for a while, because like you don't necessarily see those cubs are off in the brush behind her or something like that. And you think it's a male or whatever, like, because a lot of those females can be pretty big. And the next thing you know, you've got this dead bear with cubs. Now, if in a dog situation, you have all the time in the world to analyze that bear. Is she lactating? Is she got cubs with her? Or what size is she or he?
Well, I think, too, to hound hunting, there's what I've found out, and again, I'm fairly new to it, because in the state that I'm originally from, they banned hound hunting in 2013. But the thing about hound hunting, too, is there's so much more to the sport, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the job of being a houndsman, there's you're running your dogs constantly, you're feeding your dogs. There's so much other stuff that goes into just showing up.
Dog.
We have to make the dog before, and that's part of what we're doing here is teaching the dogs to run bears and be able to scent bears and figure out and differentiate. Yes, we're going. No, we're not going.
Yeah.
A lot of people think they can just like buy a dog and it's not that hard.
Run it.
Yeah, going hound hunting's easy.
Right. It's not.
I love when people say that. It's like, come out with me one time. Some of the hardest hikes I've had.
You let your dog loose, and now it's chasing deer, and it's off on.
No, not even. I mean,
it's like if you're hunting and you see a ridge and you see an elk up on a ridge, and it's late in the day, you can look at that elk and be like, oh man, that thing is 4 miles away right now. I have an hour left of light. I don't even know if I could physically make it up there. So you could choose whether to go after that animal or not.
Right.
You can look at an area on a map and be like, oh, well, this looks like a good deer area, but that's really steep. I don't want to go up that ridge. Well, you turn your dogs out, and your dogs and that animal make the decision for you.
Yeah.
And if you're too big of a pussy to go hike after your dogs, then you're not going to have dogs for very long.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and case in point, what was your longest race last year? 16 miles?
Yeah, pretty far.
17 miles?
Holy shit.
That's for one cat.
Yeah.
And some you look at a track and be like, oh, that looks like an old track. It's going to be a long day. Load up the pack with water, load up all that, and you turn them loose, and shit, they catch it in 500 yards.
Yeah.
But sometimes you look at a track and it looks smoking, and you turn loose on it, and next thing you know, 8 hours later, you get
that happened to us on our last track of the season this year.
It's like get back to the truck in the middle of the night, and you just never know.
And that's so the other thing that, and I'm sure you guys are super aware of it over here and down even where you're at, but I know Casey and there's a couple other guys that have hounds over here. They all know each other. It's a fairly small community. Almost every one of these guys over here that I've talked to have all lost hounds to wolves.
I've never lost one. I run we'll cut wolf tracks every day with line hunt. We run in a very high wolf density area, and knock on wood, haven't had a bad day yet, but eventually I probably will.
It's like riding a motorcycle. Day. You go down once.
You don't know. And, we try if we have a wolf track and a lion track, going the same way, we won't turn loose on it. If we know there's wolves in the area, you won't turn loose on it. But there's a lot of times that those wolves are up there that maybe they didn't hit the road and they could be right there, have a kill.
Yeah, and this time of year is tough because during the cat hunting season, a lot of these guys are running these roads, and if they see fresh wolf tracks, they'll leave that area and go look at other areas. But with it being bear season right now, the snow's going off. There's not snow on the road. Like you might have a wolf pack having crossed the road last night and you don't even know.
Or the dogs run a bear and it goes by a wolf den and there's a wolf den right there.
Right. So a buddy of mine last year, that was one of the things he was really worried about. He lost 2 dogs a couple of years ago to wolves, and so last year he let loose. Just this winter he let loose on a cat, and to your point, it just went forever, and he was going like crazy on foot trying to keep up with his dogs because they went up and over kind of down into the 9 Mile Valley from more like on the interstate side of Alberton, and he knew there were wolves over on that side, and he got so far from his dogs, and it was so deep of snow and whatnot. It took him so long to get to his dogs that he was just worried sick that by the time he got there, the wolves were going to be there because he had wolves come into his dogs this year as well, but didn't get them. Actually, they were all around his truck and his dog boxes. But he actually had just took his dogs up and he was going to just kind of exercise them or do something. And he went on a little hike. This is just like a month ago. Went on a little hike without his dogs, just up on a little ridge to kind of look at like some elk hunting ground. And he just had his dogs in their dog boxes and they were in there barking or doing whatever. And he said, coming back down the hill, and he had pictures of like wolves around his truck. And his gun was in his truck because he wasn't even intending
doing anything.
Yeah, he just took a walk up the hill. And he just happened to park close enough to a pack of wolves. They were right down around his truck.
Yeah. I always tell people, like, when I turn my dogs loose, I have one job. And that's my dogs.
Yeah.
So I tell them, like, hey, if I leave you, it's snow. Follow my foot tracks. Can't make it, follow them back to the truck.
Right.
But my job is to get to the trucks or get to the trees as fast as I can and get my dogs.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask some questions that people probably wonder about when they see it, but like, do the bears fight back with the dogs? Do they ever get into it with them?
They can like a bigger bear will walk. So like the dogs might be running it and that thing just decides to walk and bay up and not tree.
Really?
Yeah. So they can either turn on the burners or they can kind of just chill and fight back. And so you want a dog that's gritty enough to stay with it, but not so gritty that it's
also stays back 10 feet.
Yeah. Not get tore up and commit suicide via bear.
How smart are the dogs about like their ability to actually, go quote unquote hand to hand with a bear?
Yeah. I mean, my male's pretty stubborn. He knows my staple gun very well. Yeah. This is the first year I haven't had a vet bill with him. And
almost though in that tree.
Yeah. But
that was close.
Yeah. He climbed a tree like 30 feet and tried fighting a lion in the tree.
Really?
Yeah. That didn't go too well, but luckily he didn't get cut up. And then the lion finally jumped after a little tussle. And then I get to the next tree, and he's even higher in the tree. And the cat's real tired at this point, and he's biting the cat's tail. I'm like, dude, come on.
Really?
You're 35, 40 feet in the tree biting this thing's tail, and you almost just died 2 minutes later. But yeah.
How in the hell do you get your dog down?
There's only two ways. So lion jumps, dog jumps after it, this was the case. And then the other way is climb up and get the dog. It's like a lot of the times the lion will be in the tree and a lot of dogs don't climb. You don't want them to climb.
Right.
It definitely a lesser life expectancy for that dog, and then a pain in the ass. But sometimes if they get really close to the cat, you can't really climb up and grab your dog a foot away from the cat.
What I think a lot of people also don't realize too is I think a lot of people that don't know just assume that everybody that's running bears or lions are killing bears and lions.
I've never shot a big game animal under my dogs, not once.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
We've killed a lot of cats. I run a lot of ranches that I have access to help manage predators, and I always bring a shooter with, but it's the one hunting that I'm never a shooter with. Yeah. And I could care less if we caught a 50-pound cat or a 150-pound cat. For me, I just like watching my dogs catch lions and taking pictures of them.
One thing that happened this year that was really cool, there was one of the properties that gets managed, and we go in there and we're talking to the ranch manager, like opening day. Yeah. And he starts talking about how grateful he is because they haven't had this many deer and elk on their property and
that was
ever
3 years of me hunting it. He said this is the most amount of, and then we treat a lot of cats on this place. We don't kill a lot of cats. We've killed a lot, but there's a lot of cats on it. And they said it's the most mule deer they've seen in 15 years.
And elk too.
And elk, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and back to my point kind of with that is like, well, Adeline that was here this morning, she said she's, treated her 12th bear of the year so far. And we're super early still.
I mean, bear hunting's not even good yet.
Right. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people aren't even out hunting yet that just spot and stalk.
She's grinding.
But she still hasn't killed one.
Yep.
And that's what I think a lot of people need to realize is that, it's a fun sport. It's cool to go out and do, but a lot of these animals aren't actually getting harmed at all. They're just, they're
catch and release.
They're going up a tree. It's a catch and release. It's no different than trout fishing, frankly, without the hook. I mean, most of the time, these animals aren't getting touched by anything. They're just running up a tree.
And you're finding the right animal to take rather than shooting a wet sow or a sow with cubs or a 1.5-year-old boar whose mom is around the corner that you didn't see.
Right. Well, and the other part of that is I think it's very similar. I trained a bird dog in high school and, flunked out of college, bird hunting my way right out of college. But I didn't really, shooting birds was fine. I loved to go bird hunting, duck and goose hunting and whatnot. But like for me back then, the entire reason I loved it so much was watching my dog work. Like we wanted to get birds down just to watch our dogs do their job, and to see a dog that you've trained go on a really tough retrieve where that dog's going to probably have a hard time. That bird went down and on the other side of something really thick, has to swim through water and then get on an island and then find that bird. To see the instincts of those animals kick in, combined with your training and their instincts, like I don't really care about shooting a duck or a goose. That's not the part that does it for me, but watching
the dog work.
Yeah. Or watching, like right now, I have a young lab in training, but if I was to go out with my buddy, if he had a crazy good dog, like I'd have a blast watching that guy's dog. And I think it's real similar with hound hunting. You're doing it really for your dogs, but even for a guy like you, Andy, that's going with him, it's just fun to watch a good dog do its thing, or especially a group of dogs together is really cool.
So earlier this season, we were out on one of the properties and cut cat tracks, and cat was coming down a creek, and the snow was decent in some areas, and across the plains and kind of like the farmland was.
Are you talking about that bald? The dry ground.
Yeah, I mean, it was complete dry ground.
Like 3 miles of just 30-mile-an-hour winds and not a lick of snow.
And his two dogs are working through the creek bed, and the cat pops up out and then cut straight across this barren ground. And we sat on the ridge top.
The track did. So the cat wasn't there. The cat had been there sometime in the night.
Yeah.
Right.
Just for listeners.
And we watched the dogs. We were sitting on the ridge above the creek bed, and we watched the dogs come out, and
hour and a half.
Yeah, they just worked their way right across it, and they'd get hung up, and they'd start trying to figure it out and what's going on, where are we going, and then they'd break free and they'd keep going, and then they'd find another little mix up, and then they'd keep going, and then
sometimes 10 yards at a time they have good scent, and then they're just hunting, nose to the ground, just grinding it out.
Yeah.
That's how you make good dogs that way. A lot of dogs, I mean, we have it pretty easy here as far as lion goes. I mean, if you look at the guys in Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, I mean, they hardly ever run with snow, but a lot of guys here and a lot of hound guys they'll hunt on good condition days, fresh snows, good snow,
right. Good days
weather
only.
days, and you don't make a good dog that way. You make good dogs when you turn them out and turn over and look at Andy, be like, hey, we might not catch this, but dogs are
Let's go.
Have a good day. And we sit back and drink coffee and we watched them grind, and we ended up catching 2 cats that day.
Yeah.
Killing a nice tom.
So how long
fun.
from the time a dog's a pup, when do you start introducing him to going with like the older dogs? And
as soon as they can start kind of running with it. And, sometimes when they're really young, they just can't make it through the snow. But, 4 months, they can kind of start at least walking with you to a tree, or
have them leashed out.
6 months old, they can pretty much run a track if the snow's not too deep. And at that point, they're following the dogs. And,
what does that look like? You got your old dogs, they're doing their thing. Is that young dog just kind of running along like?
So it's pretty cool. They'll generally so for instance, my younger dog, she's a year and a half now. So last year was her first year on lion. I think
she was doing great last year too.
6 months old she was on opening a lion. And they'll follow the other dog, but they don't know what they're doing. They've never seen a cat. And you'll get to a tree, and let's say the cat's high up in a tree. That dog might have no clue what it's doing. It's looking at the other dogs, and they're going berserk, crazy, barking, treeing, and they don't know. So once that dog sees the lion first in the tree, whether the cat jumps or it's treed really low, you can watch their eyes just light up. And so it's so cool to watch a dog that's, been to a couple trees, but maybe hasn't seen the cat or not knowing what's going on. And then it is just like it is an on switch. The second they see that, their eyes light up, they start barking, they go berserk. And then it's just kind of learning to trail. And some dogs are really, really fast starters. You do it a couple times and they're on, and some take a while. And luckily my dog my male got tore up real bad last year. He got like 38 staples. And so I'm sitting there like in the prime of cat season, and now I have, I think, like a 9-month-old puppy. So one. And I was like, oh man, this is
that was at 16 Mile Day when he got ripped up too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a long day. He got ripped up.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here with, a 9-month-old dog, and I know he's going to be out for a couple weeks, and it was bad weather, and I think I'd worked late that night before, so I decided to go for a trail run, and we're out for a trail run, and next thing you know, she stops in the middle of the trail and looks up the mountain, and then I was like, go. And she just takes off up the mountain, trees a lion.
Really?
Yep. No, there's no tracks, just air sent to the cat, runs off and trees it. I was like, oh, I think she has it. And then I think we caught 8 cats in like 2 weeks while he was out. Every time we went out, she just grinded it out, and that really helped make her. And it's
by herself.
By herself. Yeah.
She's a savage.
She's good. So now this past year running with 2 of those dogs, it was good.
What's the ideal number of dogs if you were trying to be as successful as you could be, and
lion,
no other factors? Yeah, what's an ideal number?
3 probably.
Yeah.
2 is great. I like 2 or 3. Too many dogs. Like let's say you have 5 dogs on a lion track, really, those dogs in the back are kind of just following the other ones. There's not much, they're not digging their nose in the scent. And so it can kind of mess it. Too many dogs can kind of be a shit show sometimes.
Turns into a little bit of a circus.
On a snow track. Yeah. On dirt, you want more dogs so they can fan out and grind it out harder.
What about on bears?
You want, like, I don't know, 5. 5's good.
Really?
You want more dogs, yeah.
More intimidating to the bear to make him go up a tree.
Yeah, and dogs will drop out. They'll get too tired, and so you need to pick dogs up and dump them further in. So you just want more to put the pressure on them and to keep up.
Interesting. Yeah, so with the dogs, like, what are you running radio collars on them to keep track of them?
Yeah,
like, because it's interesting. I remember being a kid. There were actually a few houndsmen in Lincoln back then, and the tracking collar thing wasn't a thing yet.
We were talking about this morning,
and I remember often. His name was Mike Barthelmess. I remember fairly often Mike, like, putting the word out around town, like, "Hey, watch for my dogs," because. Again, especially in snow country and whatnot, you get one that really goes a long way and gets, through some cliffs or some areas where you're not going to physically get there. And next thing you know, you lose track of your dogs.
And they won't leave a tree.
Yeah. And I remember at times those guys missing dogs for 2 or 3 days, or maybe like one dog.
There's a hound guy where I live that runs similar country, and he has collars. He ended up, I think it was just rodent dogs in like the evening, later in the day, and they ended up striking a lion, and they ran it. They were out for, I think he found them 6 nights later. And
Didn't he leave his box out there too?
Left his box out, hoping they'd come back.
And a couple came back though to it.
It was like way steep snow. I mean, this country has probably the most snow in the state. And he took his snowmobile in as far as he could, ended up a few days later trying to hike in, couldn't make it in time, decided to make, it's big wolf country too, so he was kind of assuming that his dogs were goners. He ended up hiking in because one dog came out to the box, his young pup, I think 5 days later. So then he hikes in on snowshoes. I think by like 4 o'clock in the evening, he just hears something, and it was like a little squeak or a little moan. And he goes down the next ridge, and he had 2 of his dogs there that had no bark left.
Really?
Completely hoarse.
Still at the tree.
They had a tom in a tree. And one of the dogs was roughed up, and then he still had one out there somewhere because one had come back, 2 were at that tree. The next day he hiked back to that tree and just started doing loops, seeing if he could find it. He ended up finding that dog, same thing, no voice, had a smaller cat in a tree. 6 days later.
Just did not leave.
Still tree.
And he was waist deep in snowshoes.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
So the drive on those dogs is just like no other.
And so for people that don't know, you let loose on them. Are they barking or very vocal as they're running the track?
It depends. Some dogs are quiet on a track. Like my female, she won't bark until that lion's jumped.
Until she sees it.
And that's
the coolest thing.
And then my male will.
Because you'll hear her over anything. You'll just hear her go, and you're like, all right, cool.
She doesn't bark.
Chases on.
She has about picture like a 14-year-old girl just screaming the highest pitch shriel. That's
really?
It's the ugliest thing you've ever heard, but it
like
is
a
like
siren.
piercing. Yeah, it's like a whistle.
It's like, all right, game on.
But it's kind of nice to know that you've got one that's like, you truly know, like, nope,
it's the dog sees it.
Yeah.
And then my male, if it's a fresh track, he lets you know. He likes to talk.
Yeah. And then once they get to the tree and they've got them up, then they're just
going crazy.
60 barks per minute.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And he's got on his radio collar transmitter.
Tell you how much they're barking.
It'll tell you how much they're barking per minute. And it'll tell you if they're treed. It'll back to what you were talking about the devices, like the information that you can gather off of them is insane.
Yeah.
To be able to sit and watch in real time what's happening. It was like last night we cut a track, complete cold, didn't the dogs, one dog kind of sounded off.
They just got real interested. So you saw them
and then the whole pack of dogs were just slowly working through the hillside. They kind of disappeared. They were 280 yards out. And then all of a sudden they're 800 yards out treed.
Yeah.
Really?
And it was right at sunset.
So that bear probably walked across that road, really early in the day. So the sun was hitting it. That sense dissolving and
How
going.
how long will that? How long if a bear walks across a road at 6 a.m? How long can time elapse before your dogs really won't pick it up or
Temps
be able
and
to
weather
follow it?
control a lot.
Yeah, so if
Yeah.
it's rain, and obviously that's going to take a lot
It
of
can
scent
wash
away.
it out, but like, you know, if let's say, you know, last week we were hunting and you know, dogs blew up, turned them out, and we were kind of down in a river bottom, nice and shaded, cool, and they all blew out. I think we had like 10 dogs on it, and they were like, oh, this is good, and it is.
I'll pull that thing closer.
How's that?
Yeah, you can just pull that; it'll rotate right into you.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So they just blew out of it, and they're all just going berserk. Like, oh, this is good. And all of a sudden, they get way up high, and there's not a lot of trees. Sun was beating down on it, and it just petered out.
So the sun will actually take some of that scent away.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what happened to us with that last cat on
Yeah.
closing day of the season. You know, like we had 4 tracks that day, ran one first thing in the morning, got it. Next cat was a super old female,
Yeah.
like shaken. She was terrified.
She was
of
all
the
but
dog.
60 pounds. I mean,
Left.
ancient cat, just
Yeah.
fully grayed face.
I'd never seen a cat
Really?
that
Yeah.
looked like that. Like usually they're like, you know, they look like a cat. This one was just like pitch
Sunken
black
in.
and gray. It was
Yeah.
the coolest thing I ever seen.
That's kind of like when I was talking about Hank's bear that he shot. You know, when I saw it, I was like, "Oh my god, it's like super young, like little young bear, female." But then when we, you know,
Got the
started
age
looking at
back.
her teeth and looking at its skull and stuff, like her teeth were basically gone. It was missing teeth in its front. Its teeth that you age were.
Did you check the age? Did you check the age when he got it back from?
No, but the guy, I can't remember at what age he thought it was, but like the guy was worried about being able to even get a tooth out of it because of like
worn
how
down.
worn down it was. There
Really?
was like no tooth left. And the taxidermist said it's the oldest skull he's seen,
No
like from teeth wise. And she had just, I don't think she was ever a big bear. I think she was probably small framed her whole life, but she was also just diminished down. I think probably wasn't going to make it through another winter.
Yeah.
Like she had no fat on her. And Hank
This was
shot that
fall
bear in
season?
September.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, now juxtaposed to the bear that Hank shot when he was 12. So 2 years earlier, he shot a boar, in September, with his rifle. And that bear had freaking 2 inches of fat. I mean, it was just loaded in fat. And so same time of year, and she had no fat, you know, none at all. So I think she was probably not going to make it, you know.
That's what people don't realize too. Some of these mountain bears, I mean, they're older bears and mature bears, but they're just tiny. Some of these mountain bears do not get big, and then some get giant.
Yeah. Yeah. I think genetically she was just, if you just saw her walking across the field, you'd be like, oh, that bear's only a couple years old, you know, and shit, she was freaking 12, 15 years old, you know. But,
Pushing
yeah,
it.
it's interesting to me too with the dog stuff, you know, when people talk about like, oh, you know, all these bears are going to get killed. You let them run them with hounds and whatnot. And I think to your point earlier, it's not like when you pass a rule like that with being able to use hounds on bears that like everybody's going to go do it. You know, there's a ton of guys out there that would love to know somebody like you to be able to go, but let's face it, you know, I'm not going to go buying hounds. Like I shouldn't own hounds because I'm not going to be able to have the time or the know how to run them. And it's really the time, the dedication of the time. Because you guys that own hounds, you guys really dedicate yourselves like it's a year-round job. It's not like owning a Labrador Retriever where like I may or may not duck hunt if I don't ever hunt with them. You know, they're a great house dog. And I know a lot of people do have hounds, including Andrew, our director, my operations director of operations here. He's got a couple hounds, and they just have them as pets. But they don't run them. But to own hounds and actually run them, you got to be serious about training. And
Well, here's a really good example. Usually we can have the same days off. So I'll go to the gym in the morning. He goes to his gym in the morning. We'll talk around, I don't know, 10:30 or 11. Then he's going on a 7 to 10 mile trail run to run his dogs on an off day. And then we'll meet up at some point after that. And that's almost a daily occurrence. And to me, like, that was one of the first things that I noticed, like getting to know Brice and getting to know the hound community and everything about it, is like how much time, effort, and energy outside of season goes into every single dog.
Right.
And it blew me away.
Well, and then in season's the most important. I mean, if you're working 70-hour weeks, you're never going to have a good dog. I work 2 to 3 days a week, and I work 12s. And during lion season, pretty much every single day, I'm out running my dogs.
What do you do?
Cats. I'm a PA, physician assistant.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah, I work at urgent care in town.
Okay.
Bozeman. So that schedule allows me to get out and do that many days. But if you're going to be a guy that gets hounds and you want to go every other weekend when you can get out, you're never going to make a good dog.
Well, and it's tough in Montana too, because that time of year, the days are actually short.
Oh, yeah.
So like, it's not like, well, I could go after work. Well, no,
you can't.
You get off work at 5, it's dark already. At 4:30, it's
3:30.
yeah, like, so you literally have to do it during the day if it's during the week, or obviously you got your weekends, but it's not like this time of year. You could get off at 5 and go out for 4 or 5 hours.
And then, not many people want to ride a snowmobile at 4 o'clock in the morning when it's -10 out looking for a track. They want to stay in bed.
Do you have a dog box on your snowmobile?
Yeah, so I tow it behind. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I was talking to my friend of mine here that's got dogs, and we were talking about that whole trying to stay with your dogs in wolf country and staying tight with them. And we were talking about how it would be handy if you had a partner, like a friend that you went with all the time instead of solo. Like most of the time, I think he's by himself. But if you were with somebody all the time, I was asking him if he ever used snow bikes, because he always used snowmobiles.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about a snow bike is you can go freaking anywhere. You can go through the timber and deep snow and super steep stuff, and you can stop. And snowmobiles are great, but they also are really limiting on where you can go with deep powder and through timber and stuff like that. But his point was, with a snowmobile, he can throw a dog on it if he needs to, or he can pull his dog box behind and stuff like that. It's a little harder with a snow bike. But we were talking about if you had a partner where one guy could take off on a snow bike to just stay with the dogs and get there, and then the other guy comes along behind, maybe parks a snowmobile short of wherever they're at, and then hikes the rest of the way in. But at least you're maybe getting to your dogs a little faster.
I'd give someone a lot of money if they could get a snow bike through the country we hunt.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's steep, nasty downfall.
Some of the
cliffy.
stuff, you start sliding and you're not stopping until you hit something to stop you, or the bottom of a ravine.
Right.
Like, our last day is, I don't know, I think I probably did 2 or 3 30, 40-foot slides just into the canyon. And you just kind of slide and you're like, all right, whatever my boot can lock into is what I'm going to stop on.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about, North Face timber blowdown snaggy shit. You're not getting, hell, you can hardly walk through it, much less get a snow bike or something. But yeah, and even like west of here out towards Superior and whatnot, it's just such, well, even back here, just such steep, big country. It's just tough.
Well, one cool thing too, this year, the dog's got a gunner kennel, and the gunner kennel is like winterized, so it can go. It's supposed to be rated for below 0 temperatures and keep the dog. I think it's supposed to help them maintain like 30 to 40% more energy once you let them out. And it was,
we fit like
three dogs.
Yeah, I think the most we fit was 4 that one day.
Yeah,
which that was a bit tight. I don't think dogs liked it, but it worked well.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like, got a nice custom rig built for it with skis for the snowmobile and everything. So whenever we go out, it's just, the dogs are perfectly safe. They're not going to freeze to death. It's not, there's no problem there. They're completely insulated and warm the whole time.
How do your dogs do with like coming over here and going with like Adeline's dogs? They don't know them, mixing.
Yeah. My male can be a bit testy, and she has a male that is
also
a bit
testy.
And they got a bit testy yesterday at the tree.
Did they?
They did. We didn't run them together today.
It's actually funny to me that they would at the tree, because you'd think at the tree they'd be so focused up there.
They're adrenaline. That's where your problems are.
They're an entirely different dog.
Yeah, they're just so adrenalined up. The biggest problems is, it's usually intact males you have issues with. So like stuffing another intact male in a dog box with another intact male that don't know each other, that they'll usually, figure it out. And then at a tree or at a dead bear, dead lion, they get just so amped up that
Really?
Yeah. So there was some face barking that went on, and then they went at
locking.
it. Yeah, then some face locking.
Yeah.
So yeah, we
Got
decided
wild pretty quick.
we didn't hunt those two together.
Do you put shock collars on yours?
Yeah, so the collars will shock, tone, and then GPS as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you when do you actually use the shock portion? Because I would imagine, like, if they're getting in too tight or trying to fight something or whatnot, I mean, I guess for a seasoned dog, it probably wouldn't stop them. But like with a young dog, you wouldn't want to shock it and teach it that it's a bad thing.
Yeah, you'll never shock a dog when they're on an animal that you want them on. Mm-hmm. So generally, it's when they're doing something that they're chasing something or barking at something that you don't want them on.
Deer or something like that.
You can teach a hound dog to run any type of animal,
right?
You know, so yeah, usually it's, you know, if they're running deer or running elk or doing something they're really not supposed to be doing. And for the most part, you know, my dogs know what tone means, and I can just tone them and they'll come back. Yeah, they'll come back or they'll stop. But yeah, you try to never shock a dog that's chasing the animal you want them to be chasing.
What's the difference in a blue tick hound and a, what are they, red bone or red? What are the different?
Some dogs will have like colder noses and like better noses, and some dogs will be a little faster. Some dogs will be a little slower. A lot of people out here run like a mix of stuff. Like mine are all mixed up. My female has red bone in her, has black and tan in her, has Walker in her. And I think a lot of guys out here don't really care what type of dog it is, that they want to make sure that they got a dog that was bred for a reason. So,
right,
you know, you're breeding a female with certain traits that you like to a male with certain traits that you like, not
looking for papers.
Yeah, not because the dog has, you know, is registered, you know, because then you're just breeding a dog because it has papers, but papers don't do anything in the mountains.
Now you guys are out here also. There's a hound competition, is that right?
Yeah, Montana hound trials. So
I'm thrilled, to be honest.
Fun.
This is my first time getting to go to it, and he kind of broke down some of the events to me, and I'll let him break those down. But he broke down some of the events to me and what's going to be happening and how it all works, and it was like the coolest thing I've ever heard of for dogs.
There'll be like 150 dogs there.
So how do you do this? How do they set it up?
So a bunch of people go out and camp, and there's a ranch that kind of lets us do it every year, and one of my buddies helps put it on. So basically you'll have like a bear race, a lion race, a coon race, and they'll have, you know, a big section of the ranch that they'll start with dogs lined up. So you'll have dogs in heats. So let's say you have 10 dogs going at a time. You'll have a guy on a dirt bike with a coon hide.
So it's
on
a serious, like,
dude, it's
freaking race.
Unreal.
Yeah. And they're all together.
Well, you'll run like 8 to 10 dogs at a time.
Yeah.
And there'll be different heats. So you'll have like a live coon kind of in a cage in a tree. So that's where the dogs will end up at. But then you have a coon hide that's on a rope attached to a dirt bike that you'll soak in scent. So you'll soak it in coon scent for this race, lion scent for this race, bear scent for this race. And then that dirt bike will take off, and it'll do, you know, 4 or 5 miles. It starts in the flats, and then they cut out these little tiny trails that, I mean, I definitely wouldn't get up on a dirt bike, but they're getting up on dirt bikes. And then after they're done, they'll let the guy know on a radio, like, okay, let him loose. And then you turn the dogs loose, and the first dog to the tree wins.
Really?
It'll be like a 4 or 5
My dogs
race.
go about 500 yards and turn around.
Why is that?
I think they just realize that, like, some people will train their dogs specifically for these trials. Like that dog might never hunt a real bear, or might tree 3 lions in a year, but they do drags with them, so the dogs are used to drags. Like, I think my dogs get excited, and then they run it for a bit and then realize, like, this doesn't smell like a real animal. And then they kind of just, I still put them in it. I don't really care. It's just for fun. But it's a big family event. You know, you'll see little 5-year-olds holding their hound dog, and little girls running dogs. And it's just a big family event. Good way to get together. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so cool because I have a friend of mine, Tommy, that was just over here last weekend. But he comes over. He lives in Helena. He's commander over there at the Army at the helicopter base over in Helena, and flies choppers and does all that stuff. But he trains, what are those dogs? The shit. They're attacked. They're like a police dog. Laura Zara's got one.
Malinois.
Yeah. He trains the Malinois, and he comes over every single Sunday. He drives from Helena, and they train over here because him and another guy really are kind of the trainers, but like these guys that are in this little club, they can join like this little club and they can train with them, but the rules are like, you don't miss. Like you have to be here every Sunday because like owning one of those dogs is a responsibility. It's a big deal.
And you saw Trent's dog, right?
Yeah. Trent's
dog is unreal.
Yeah.
I love that dog. Reaper is a savage.
Yeah. And they come over every weekend, they do that stuff, but then, they also have, competitions and stuff like that. And he keeps telling, I'm going to do it, but just one of these Sundays I need to get out there. But he's like, you got to come out and get in a bite suit and let him bite you. And actually get that sense of what it's like to have one of those dogs hit you full steam. I was like, okay,
might have to have a couple beers before you do that.
Shit. Yeah. But the athleticism, but there again, I don't care if it's a hound, if it's a black lab or, a pointer, or like a police dog like that, a protection animal. The instinct, it's so cool when you see an animal with the instincts that it's got absolutely like excel at its job.
Oh yeah. The first time that I ever learned about a lot of that kind of stuff was German Shepherds from a place called Kraftwerk. And they produce German Shepherds that your kid can climb around, your 1-year-old could climb on, tug its ears. It doesn't matter. Could try to ride it while it's laying down on the floor, and the dog will not do anything. And if you're in your car and someone is trying to get in your car, you can open up the back hatch of your car and say something, and that dog will tear that person's throat out.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I was ever exposed to like the potential. This is 2006.
Yeah.
The potential that you could have with a dog as far as protection animal and what they can do and what they're capable of blew my mind.
Yeah. The first things I'd ever heard about was the guy that taught me to make knives, Rick Dunkerley. When I was a kid, he always had German Shepherds, and his job in the Air Force, back when he was a young man, and it was actually the very, very beginning of them doing this, but he fell into this job in the Air Force. He basically just started helping a guy and then ended up getting into it and loving it and became a dog trainer for the military. And they were training drug dogs a little bit, but mostly bomb dogs. But their test... Back then, their test was they would take like a whatever it was that dog had to sniff out, gunpowder or something like that. They would freeze it in a cooler, like put like gunpowder in a baggie, put it in a cooler, fill the cooler with water and freeze it in there, and then put it in a car in like a new car parking lot. They'd go to a dealership, and that dog had a certain amount of time it was allowed to find that. And he says that he'd let that dog go. And that dog would just be flying up and down the rows of cars. And then it just, all of a sudden, just like...
light up.
And just like stop and like start to hone in, get next to a car or whatever and sit down. And, with a bomb dog, they don't want them hopping on anything or whatever. Their alert is to sit. But like he said, it's just mind-boggling what a dog's nose is capable of, like beyond belief,
I think the cool part, too, is like learning the individual dog. Like I think... 2 years ago when Andy was going with me, I think he was mainly just tagging along and kind of learning.
Yeah.
But he went with me so much this year that if he went out and had a lion track and say I'm at work, I think he would know exactly what my dogs were doing, what they were thinking, and just being able to articulate that. Just even if your dogs are 2 miles away on GPS, like learning the dogs, learning how their behaviors, and learning the trade.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. 2 years ago, we were flying back from, I want to say it was Mexico, and my kids and I, and Jess, we were in the Seattle airport, and we got to the line to go through TSA, and it was ridiculous. I mean, it was a freaking mile long, and I was like, we're screwed. We're missing our plane. Not happening. And we're standing there in line. We're so far from the actual, like metal detector shit, and this line is like moving, like fast, like just kind of constantly moving for this many people. I'm like, what the hell? And then as we start getting closer, you hear the TSA agents yelling, leave your coats on, leave your bags, leave like, you know, your shoes on, your hats on, whatever. And they literally were saying, whatever you think you know about going through TSA, you don't know it today, just leave basically everything. And like, basically you would just walk up, set your bag on, the belt goes through, but like big puffy coats and all that, like leave it all on. And as we're getting closer, I asked a TSA person that walked by, I was like, what the hell, what's going on? And they're like, oh, well, we got dogs in here today. So, you know, it's moving fast. And that dog they were just walking that dog just kind of around. And that dog never got within 6 feet of me, but they were just walking that dog around, you know, back and forth through the room and whatnot. And they said, yeah, all that stuff you go through at TSA is really for bombs. Yeah. It's not drugs. They're not looking for your weed and all that shit. It's bombs. And so that's what all that's for. And the guy, my buddy told me, if somebody walked in that room, that giant terminal, if somebody walked in there and had a bomb on them, like that dog would know in seconds, would know that there's a bomb in the room.
It's wild.
You know, it's like
Insane.
What the hell are they smelling the rest of the time? Like it must be unbelievable, you know?
And imagine what we smell like after 5 days in the woods.
Exactly. Exactly. Like they know what you're eating. They know how bad your body odor is. They know when you fart, you know, like the whole 9 yards. It's just kind of mind boggling, but yeah. So Andy, what are you like? Are you thinking of getting dogs? Do you just like to tag along, let him do all the hard work of feeding them?
No, I mean, if I didn't have as crazy of a travel schedule as I do, I would guarantee you I'd already have dogs.
You're pretty hooked.
I love it. Absolutely. I mean, it's so much fun.
It's the best thing you'll ever do.
Everything about it is like, you know, and I love, you know, I love hunting. Like, I will hunt as much and as often as I possibly can.
Yeah.
If I didn't travel 3-4 times a month and be gone for 12 to 15 days at a time, I would have dogs.
Right.
I'm gone way too much to be able to be a responsible owner of a dog.
That's like my buddy Tommy with his, you know, kind of attack dogs. He, you know, and with those particular dogs, and maybe a little bit also with hounds, like he for sure with his dogs can't just like normal, like do the normal, like, hey, can you watch my dogs for the weekend or kennel them? Hounds, I think you probably could a little more, at least have somebody come by and feed them. Where with his dogs, nobody's walking in the house.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to just some stranger come walking in with his. Where with hounds, I imagine you can at least probably have somebody come by and feed him for the weekend.
They'll just lick you to death and jump on you.
Yeah. But it is, to your point, a big, like,
it's a serious responsibility.
Yeah.
It's another life.
And they're not dogs that you can just, you know, bring around town and go camping and have them sit next to you.
No, because if they cut a scent, they're gone.
They're gone.
Yeah.
You can't just go take your dog for a walk without it. You know, you have to have
without having your stuff with you.
Because at any time, if they smell something that they want to go, they're going to be gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the biggest cat that you've either taken or had one of your friends take over
Ross's
your dogs?
Cat, probably.
Yeah, my buddy Ross, it was big. I don't know. We shot like a 156 the next week, which is a really good line for Montana, and it made that cat look small. So we were 180, 190 region, like
190 pounds.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some big cats, and I walked up the tree and. He hadn't shot a cat in 13 years. He hadn't shot a cat
as a houndsman.
And he'd shot one before he had dogs, I think. And kind of like me, I killed one cat with a guy I went out with before I had dogs. And he said, I think I'd like to shoot one really, really big line, get a full body mount of it.
Yeah,
I'll kill one more.
And the mount is like. Yeah. When you see it, it is one of the most jaw-dropping cat mounts I've ever seen in my life.
Phil Suhay did it.
Really?
And he's out of Libby. He's the best lion taxidermist in the world, and I mean it's stunning. But
really?
I got up to that tree, and we knew it was a big tom, just based off the track. And we were actually running it for a girl and her family. She was, I think, like 15 or 16, and we turned loose at like 9:30 in the morning, and me and Ross made it there like half hour before dark.
Really?
It was brutal. We turned loose at like 5,200 feet. I think we treated at 8,200 feet.
Damn.
And it was a
Chasing dogs is
really,
easy.
really long day. And I mean, he's in shape. He guides. Like I can get up a mountain pretty well too. So it was just nice that we were there together. Because a lot of times we're not with people that can do that. And then that'd be me. I think we got back to the truck at midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a
well,
big
that's
gap.
like Derek Wolf shot that huge cat down there in Colorado, and he talked about how long it took him to finally get to the tree. And he was, I mean, he's a pro football player in pretty damn good shape, and he was wrecked.
Yeah. It's just different, you know.
It's a whole different beast.
Hiking up a steep face with a bunch of snow and not being used to doing that. I think, I mean, I've seen some pretty big hound guys get up mountains real fast. Seen some guys that look in really good shape be quite a bit far behind them. And I've had a lot of guys go with me that, you know, my favorite thing is when a guy says, oh, I don't really, that really doesn't do it for me. I think it's just too easy. It's like, oh, you should tag along sometime.
Dude falls down on the mountain 10 times laying on his back because he can't make it up the hill. And you're like,
or you get back and his truck
tree.
You get back to your truck after treeing a cat after waiting for an hour and a half at the tree, and he doesn't show up, and you don't have service, and you walk back, and his truck's not there anymore.
Yeah. Speaking, this sounds like something that's happened.
Yeah. So,
what about bears? What's the biggest bear you?
I haven't run that many bears.
Don't let him fool you, man. He's gonna sit here and try to be like modest and talk about not running bears. The first time he ever went on a bear hunt in Montana, he killed a thumper and thought it was tiny. And he never.
I knew it was older. I just my first bear I've ever killed. So my first tag. I think
you walk in his
6,
house and you
7
see this bear rug and you're like, oh my God, that's a giant.
He was 20 and a half.
Wow.
And it was my first tag as a resident, I think 7 years ago. Me and my brother went out hunting and spotted the bear and shot it. And we walk up. I'm like, my brother's like, I told you it wasn't a giant. I was like, well, I think it's an older bear. Like, doesn't have that much, his teeth are all worn down. He has a pretty nice sized head. I sent a picture of it to a guy that kills a lot of bears, and he was like, I'm coming over, man. He's like, you just shot an absolute giant. And
really?
Yeah. He was, I think, 6'10", the bear was.
Holy shit.
20 and a half inch head.
Damn.
And I've killed quite a few bears. I don't know if I'll kill one that big ever again, but it was fun.
How'd you get into hound hunting or running hounds?
So a nurse I worked with, her fiance at the time ran hounds, and they invited me one time, and I was hooked instantly, and kind of that turned into, he would say when he was able to go out, and I would go out, look for tracks, and I would call him, and he'd still be in bed, sleeping. And I, unbeknownst to me, I'd up at 2 a.m. looking for tracks, thinking he's out.
Really?
So that's kind of how it went. And I was just hooked. The first time I saw the dogs work, saw a lion in a tree, I was like, I need to do this for the rest of my life.
Really?
So
it's the most unreal thing ever.
That's how I, even after I killed a cat that season, I was still wake up, go look for tracks, call them, hey, I got a track. Oh, I'm in bed still. Like, I have this. So I was like, I'm getting dogs.
That's like what people
I'm getting dogs. I'm doing this. Yeah. So I tell people, I get hit up a lot to take people out. If you want to go out and find me a track, go out and find a track. That's how I learned. Well, making excuses. And a little easier now.
Yeah. No, and it's I have learned that, I know several guys with hounds, and they're quick to offer, like, if you want to go, let's go, tag along. Cause I think, you guys are out a lot, and it's probably enjoyable to have somebody go along with you and whatnot. I do think for people that are thinking about wanting to get a mountain lion or something, you also got to be careful about asking guys with hounds to just just call me when you get a big one, and then I'll come up and shoot it. Like, houndsmen aren't into just like doing your dirty work.
It's pretty easy. I can guarantee you, if you go hiking in the wintertime and you go hiking first thing in the morning and you find a lion track, man, if someone messaged me that I didn't even know on Instagram or something, hey, I have a lion track, I'd stop whatever I was doing and go there.
Yeah.
And I'd let them kill it, but the guys just want to go with you and want you to find the track for them, and it's not as fun.
Right.
Well, that too, and also like show up sometimes and they'll be sitting in the truck and they kind of don't do anything.
You think you take a guy out lion hunting, like, granted they don't know what's going on, but you're out there in the dark.
What can I do to help?
Unloading a snowmobile trailer and doing all this, and I've had guys that literally just like sit in the heated cab, and I'm out there, it's blowing wind, unloading
40 mile an hour wind on negative 10 day at 5 a.m.
It's like,
oh my God.
Like, I don't know. Even if I didn't know what's going on, like most guys, like, hey, what can I do to help? I don't know what I'm doing, but And it's like,
I'm in
gonna,
a direction.
I'm going to try to help, but also stay out of your way a little bit. But not sit in the truck and wait.
It's nice when I can bring a guy like Andy or, you know, my buddy Zach I hunt with a lot, they've done it enough. So it's
Zach's a monster too.
They just, everything that needs to be done, half the time I'm getting dogs together and snowmobile's already off the trailer. They have the dog box already hooked up to the snowmobile. Yeah. I'm doing stuff, they're doing stuff, and they just know.
Right.
And so it's
well,
nice
I've been
when that
guided
happens.
and outfitted. So for me, it's just kind of like secondhand knowledge. You just start doing things.
Right.
You know,
Right.
move the needle further so we can get up there quicker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, turning to you for a second, what do you got going these days? And for people that don't know, Andy is the flip-flop guy on Instagram. Known for
you really like sandals.
Yeah.
And pancakes.
Yeah. Going everywhere and cooking at events.
Wait. Before we go down this adventure,
Yeah.
you just got some toe holds? Is that what you're wearing right now? Let me see these, dude. AG is the greatest guy, man.
Super nice, dude.
Dude.
Yeah,
I saw him post these the other day. I was so stoked for you, man.
They got the samurai on them and the sword. Yeah.
And he
Pretty cool.
custom fit it to your foot, the whole deal, right? That's so cool, man.
They definitely in the beginning, and I was told this by
they're a little
Andy
stiff, probably.
They break your foot
Check
in.
these out.
They break your foot in pretty good in the beginning. These are just starting to get broke in. I wore them in Hawaii.
Not a bad place to start breaking them.
Yeah, exactly. I wore them in Hawaii like for an hour or two at a time, and then I'd wear my other ones just because like the leather on them and stuff on the like going over your foot will give you a blister and whatnot. Just because, and he tells you that right in the beginning, like don't
hang tight.
Yeah, don't go off like on some epic hike or something in your flip flops.
And he hunts in flip flops. Have you ever talked to him about it?
No.
Oh my God, you should talk next time you talk to him, dude. Ask him about hunting in flip flops. That man loves to hunt everything
Like in
in
mountains.
flip flops. Yes.
No shit.
He's a savage too. Like, yeah, talk to him.
Sounds
about
like Trevor Thompson. Trevor
I know,
Thompson's
Trevor's a
always
maniac,
wearing freaking
dude.
flip flops around. The first time I think I met Trevor was at like, maybe not the first time, but yeah, first time I met him was at TAC, and he was running the course in flip flops, like running up and down the hills and pulling arrows and doing shit. And he was
Did you just see the? I want to say it was a collaboration with him and Protect, and he did Mount Whitney, and he was skiing.
Yeah, he skied off of it,
off of the ice.
Yeah.
Like, dude, I was talking to him right after it, and
he
I
was like slowly like sketching his way down that ice.
Dude, I was like, dude, how much how mentally perplexing was that for you to be coming down and traverse that face, being as icy as it was this late in the year? Like, dude,
that guy's
got balls.
I don't know how many vertical feet that guy climbed and skied down this year, but
constant. Every time I saw him on Instagram, he
every
was
day.
climbing up something and coming back down it.
Almost every day, if not twice a day.
Yeah.
And he's doing couple 2,000-3,000 vertical feet and skiing down every day.
Yeah.
Hiking
Savage.
Breaking pictures of them breaking snow like up to their waist, climbing up and then skiing down literally every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, get a job, man. No, that guy is what's amazing is he was telling me how he was going along, and then he was with a couple guys where like he was even like proud of himself for keeping up with these other two dudes because they're super physically fit. And I'm like, well, how much
Trevor,
more
have you seen
physically
yourself?
fit can you be than Trevor?
I love it when he posts his thirst trap pictures on Instagram of like, this is how jacked I am.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, you're such a thirst
Or
trap.
he posts his workout and it's like some insane.
That's the same stuff that he does. Like they have identical workout whiteboards.
Oh my
it's
God.
retarded.
Well, I love being around like Tier because when he's around Trevor will be talking about something and Tier will ask him like, you can put that on your whiteboard? Are you going to whiteboard that? Like everything goes on the whiteboard, I don't know. We should probably put it on your whiteboard. Yeah. Trevor's like, shut up.
Tier's
But no,
amazing.
that guy, he's a freaking savage.
Yeah.
But
Straight up.
yeah. But anyway, are you traveling around still cooking? And
Yes. Yeah. So what do I got coming up? I got a cook in Dixon, California. Kuyu is doing a mountain academy. So Kuyu is the first place. Jason and the staff of Kuyu were the first people that ever gave me a public opportunity to cook deer legs for anybody.
Oh, cool.
So I've cooked their garage sale, which they no longer do anymore. The first time I cooked their mountain academy, the first mountain academy they did, Burns was walking up with Randy Ulmer to make sure that Randy Ulmer tried this because Burns like, this is the best wild game I've ever had in my life. Ulmer tries it, and I don't know if you're familiar with Randy Ulmer, but
yeah,
that dude is one of the most prolific bow hunters that's alive on the planet right now. Legend, like hands down legend. And Randy tries it, and he's like, "Oh man, you're killing milk lip bucks. This is so tasty." And it was a good buck that I'd killed, somewhere in the Sierra Nevadas. Anyways, so I'm cooking at Kuyu at their Mountain Academy on May 20th, and that's going to be a great event, a fun, fulfilled day. Like, I think in the evening we're going to watch Burns's bear hunt film that's coming out, which is, it's wild. It's his second Boone and Crockett brown bear that he's killed.
Holy shit!
And so he's the only person that's ever killed 2 Boone and Crockett archery brown bears alive.
Wow.
Absolutely nuts. So we're going to watch that film. We're going to cook a couple ram legs, have a great time, fly from there to the Spotted Bear Ranch, which is a fly fishing lodge up just outside of Kalispell.
Okay.
And cook there. We're doing a whole event. It's like 5 days, fly fishing, food, the whole deal. Coming out of that, then I'll fly back to California. I've got another private event for some clients down in California. And then on, I want to say it's June 22nd, Mountain Tough is hosting an event the Wednesday night before tax starts, and I'll be cooking that the whole day. And that's in Bozeman, right before the Big Sky Total Archery Challenge.
I think I'll be there at that.
And then
I look forward to.
I'm sure you'll be there. I mean, that's the first place you and I ever met was at Big Sky TAC. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
From there, July 3rd in Cody, Wyoming for a private party. And then after that, I think it's like July 8th or July 10th in Bozeman with Snays. And
is the one in Cody, Wyoming for 50 Cent?
That'd be really fun if it was. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, a goal of mine is like, I want to cook for E40. I grew up listening to E40, Too Short, like all the Bay Area legends. I would die to cook for E40 or Too Short, like any of those rappers in that area, in that time, like those. And I've actually met someone that.
You're outside my wheelhouse right now.
Dude, that's okay. That's okay, dude. We got to pump it up, dude.
50 Cent's got a ranch down there, doesn't he?
I'm sure he does.
I think he's got a huge ranch, or maybe it's outside of. Yeah, I think it's Cody.
Yeah, everybody has a ranch down there.
Yeah,
except for
it's
me. One of the most. Yeah, me too. I mean, I have a rental.
You should start rapping.
I don't even have my own house anymore. I sold my house to start building my dream. Ugh, God, what a nightmare. But so that's kind of
what I have a go fast camper. I park in Cody once in a while. There you go.
Yeah.
So one thing I was going to say is, like, it's funny. I see people doing the flip flop on their own, but the one place they really screw it up is they don't realize they need the flip flop sauce. Like that's
probably.
No, I'm telling you.
I don't see. I mean, 90%.
You need the flip flop sauce.
Yeah. Well, 90% of people that do it, usually they send me pictures and show me videos. And if people send it to me privately, like, I don't like to repost that. You know what I mean? Like, that's them and their family and their private stuff. Like,
right.
If they're not posting it, I'm not going to post it publicly.
That's like people when they DM me pictures of like their kid with a knife, and it's like, I'm not sure if I should reshare. It's like super cool. They probably
respect
don't care,
their privacy, like, kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
But people, my point is people need to buy your sauce, because I know guys that have done the flip flop. And they're like, it's not like,
it's not that
it wasn't
great.
Like the one that you did at your house. And it was like, well, did you get the flip flop sauce and like do the whole thing? And they're like,
no, I tried to make up my own marinade.
Yeah, no.
Well, so my family's been doing the flip flop. I would think that this year would mark 75 years of us actually
God, you're
cooking.
old.
I know.
75.
Third generation family tradition, right? So tried and true American family tradition, 100%. And my family history in America goes all the way back to 1650. If we ever wanted to get into the nitty gritty of that, it's a whole different story. However, my grandfather started in 1958. It's the first time that he ever put an entire venison hindquarter on a grill and was like, this is amazing. Him and my grandmother championed the recipe for the sauce that we use. And I've tried it with plenty of other sauces. I've tried it with other people's seasonings, trying to do co-branding stuff or collaboration. And like we've even talked about a knife, you know what I mean? And,
Right.
And the hardest thing for me is that it's so specific and so exact and so precise of how it's done and done correctly every time that I do it, that I won't divert out of something to make things work.
Yeah.
So I can collab or co-brand. You know what I mean? Like it has to be
Right.
It has to be perfect for it to work.
I've told people, like, you just have, like, don't try to screw around with your own, like, recipe. Just go buy the sauce.
Yeah.
And I sound like I'm, like, trying to sell your sauce, which I am.
I appreciate it.
I'm not, but that's not, but no bullshit aside. Like, that is, well, the first time I ever had it, you were cooking mule deer at the first tack that I ever went to.
Mm-hmm. Was that at Park
That was
City?
COVID year in Big Sky.
Okay, Big Sky.
Yep. And you were, I think Birch Barrel had a booth there or something, and you did a leg, and we were brand new. We didn't know. So I knew Andy.
You had launched your website on the drive
the day
down.
before,
Yeah,
night before.
I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I knew Isaac Ailman, but that was the only person on the mountain that I knew. I met Donnie Drake there and Jessica Byers and some of those guys, you know, and then I met some other, obviously met you and met other people there. We were brand new. And there was like this line of people over in front of this, you know, this barrel that you were cooking at. And it was like, somebody was like, did you try that yet? And I was like, no. And they're like, oh, it's deer. He's cooking deer leg over there. I was like, oh, okay.
Great. That sounds fucking terrible.
But like several people were like, no, really. And so my wife and I went and got, actually, I think she did. She went and got in line and brought me a piece. And I was like,
and your wife, I mean, I remember when she first started following it and you started following it, and your wife was like so adamant about how, like, all the time would remind me, oh my God, you have the best sauce. Oh my God, this is so good. Like, we have to do this, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, blew her away. Well, and I don't know how much she likes wild game actively outside, you know, but like
she does, and we cook it, but, well, she's the one that the next year when the kids were getting their deer.
Yeah.
And she was the one of like, you got to put legs in the freezer.
Yeah.
I mean, she's definitely the one that was like pushing that.
Hashtag save a leg. Shameless self-promotion.
Yeah. But she brought that piece to me and I was like, holy shit. So then we went, you know, then you do like the loop where you get it and then you walk and you get back in the back of the line and you get another piece. You just keep doing the loop until the leg's gone.
Yeah.
But
flip flop all the way until that whole leg is gone.
Yeah.
And that's where the name comes from for anybody that's not familiar with it and thinks it has to do with toe hold flip flops.
Right.
Shameless self-promotion there too.
Yeah, you don't generally think of flip-flops with your food. It's kind of gross.
Right? That's funky mildew.
Yeah.
Who knows what else is happening?
Yeah.
Yellow toenails. Gross. Anyways, what you're doing is you take the entire back leg of a deer and you're cooking it over about 1100 degree heat. It's funny, I posted a charcoal video the other day because so many people are always like, dude, how much charcoal do I use? I used too little. It didn't cook hot enough. So I was like, I'm just going to make a video. It makes it so much easier. And I filled the charcoal, I filled the Weber all the way up to the grate. And then I used the grate to smash the charcoal down and, you know, make sure that it was like a 1/4 inch clearance between the grate and the pile of charcoal. Mm-hmm. And the amount of barbecue cowboys that came in that were like, this guy's crazy. Don't do anything that this guy's doing. He has no idea what he's talking about, literally. But none of them went through and looked at the content of what I'm actually doing. So you're cooking over 1100 degree heat. You slather the sauce on with a rosemary mop, put that salt and pepper it, put that face down over your charcoal, the face side up, slather sauce on that, salt and pepper it, and literally it's no longer than 45 seconds to a minute. And like, it irks me every time I see someone doing it on their own. And they flip that leg over, and the whole top side that they just flipped is like pitch black char.
Right.
Like, man, you just overcooked it. It's not going to taste good.
Right.
Excuse me.
Well, and it's not in flames. That's the other thing I've seen people do, where they put them over like a wood fire, which a wood fire is great. You can absolutely
do it. Doesn't get
hot
enough.
But you can't have it in where the flames are like up around the meat and stuff.
Yeah.
Where the wood fires that we've done it over, you build a big fire and then let it burn down and then have absolutely as hot as can be coals. Mm-hmm. You can do it, but I've seen you do that, but then also add like briquette coals to that.
Yeah.
Just to keep that, that heat.
Primarily, I'll only use charcoal, and we've tried it over hardwoods. Like, you name it, we've tried hardwoods. Hardwood has just never reached the intensity that a full bucket of charcoal can do. And
have you tried over like some pallets and some cardboard?
Yeah, a couple times out there at the farm,
like a high school,
some plastic in
like
there.
a high school drunk party in the woods. You know,
I mean, maybe once or twice back in the day.
Yeah, some beer cans tossed in there.
Yeah, get a nice
water
aluminum
bottles.
aroma.
Yeah,
soaking into that meat.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
Something.
It's delicious. That's actually the secret to the secret sauce is we put liquid aluminum in the flip-flop special reserve.
Perfect.
And that's what really just expresses those flavors of deliciousness.
Matches the fake meat veggie burger shit that they're selling in stores.
100%.
Makes it shine.
Yeah. My favorite is when people are like, you need to stop putting MSG so everybody doesn't like it so much. I'm like, there's no fucking MSG in this seasoning. It's like, they don't do that. Like, it doesn't work. I don't know.
Well, what's also amazing with that leg, with the deer leg, is how many people you can actually feed. It's kind of surprising. You know, we've done it a couple times here with groups of people around, like during a veteran event and stuff. And for that one, we had 2 legs out because we're amateurs at this, and we're like, well, you know, you never.
Hey, you did a great job though.
You never want to be short on food.
Yeah.
And we did a whole leg, and then we started into the second leg like a little bit, and
you got like 5 shaves in, and we're done.
Yeah, and everybody was kind of done. So honestly, we pulled it off and we wrapped it up and put it in the fridge.
Yeah, well, that's the best thing. So we were just at a cattle branding over in Paradise Valley a couple of weeks ago. I cooked a leg, and we were expecting to cook 2 full legs. Ended up only being 1 1/4 leg.
Maybe
right?
a quarter.
Similar situation to what you're talking about. And I was like, well, Brice, do you want to take this leg home? And he took the leg home, and all you do is you cut off all the cooked meat, and you have a whole entire raw leg that's completely uncooked.
Yep.
So you're really not sacrificing anything, and you can save the entire leg, rewrap it and freeze it if you want, cut it up into chunks and throw it in your slow cooker. However you want to do it, you know, you can still salvage that leg and all that meat.
Well, the other beautiful thing for me is I'm still an amateur at really knowing how to properly butcher my animals.
How much time did you just get saved?
Oh, to be able to just cut the back leg off a deer and clean it up and throw it in the freezer, like it's amazing. Like, you don't have to wrap all those steaks and then have your buddies look at you like, what the hell are you doing when you're cutting that thing up? Like, you just literally screwing it up entirely, you know? Because I watch guys like the bearded butcher guys, I watch them like butcher stuff, and I'm like, God dang, I suck.
I've seen them cook a couple hind legs before, and they were doing it a little bit more different. I want to say it was, I can't think of the style, but they're hanging it on a hook and cooking it from the bottom up and kind of shaving it down that way. It looks cool. I'd like to try it that way, but I've seen a lot of people now, like, it's trending. Cooking whole hindquarters are trending since I kind of popped up on the scene. And I'll do a major shout out to Sloan and Yeti.
Yeah.
When they first started having me come and cook at their private events at different tacks and stuff like that. Western Hunt Expo as well.
But you're not going to get the heat hanging it up there like that.
No, you're cooking it. You're slow cooking it essentially. Yeah. So you're not getting the same flash, sear, rare on the inside, seared on the outside. That flavor is crystallized over it because it's cooking so hot. Like,
right. And that's the whole point, is you're searing that outside like 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch. You're cooking, you know, so you're slicing off pieces that are like 1/8 of an inch thick.
Yeah. Well, and I've battled
because I've also seen people take way too thick of slices off, and now it is like way too rare.
And well, now you're looking at a 1/2 inch thick slice of meat, and you know, it's only supposed to be a 1/4 inch.
Right.
You know, get that seared and rare instead of that seared and still cold from the inside of the animal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, I encourage people to, you know, this fall, just take the hindquarters off. Yeah. You can always cut it up later if you just decide like, we're not going to do that. Like, you can always cut the meat off the bone later.
Well, and I think too, like, some people, they'll save legs and then they never know when is a good time to cook it, or when are they going to get 30 people together or something like that. And like, dude, fight night, you know, or Super Bowl Sunday. I know a lot of people that, Katie Pavlich, Fox Town Hall News, their whole family was doing it like that is their Thanksgiving dinner now. Like,
right.
blew me away when she told me that the other week when I was out at Volcourts, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we did it for Thanksgiving. It's the best thing ever. We had axis deer. I think they were out hunting with the Pineapple Brothers or something like that, and they had a great trip."
Well, and even like now and then we just cooked the other night, we just barbecued for them, but like we cooked for my whole daughter's like basketball team.
I saw that. That looked
but
so
like
much fun.
that would be an example of like, can
I commend you on that really quick? The fact that you brought the team in and you're bringing these people in to Montana Knife Company, and you guys are doing dinners here, and you're supporting your local community and like really honing in on that. Like, dude, when I watched that, I got goosebumps just because that makes my day to see that level of interaction with your hometown community and with everything that you have going on. And you're still like, no. This is what this is about. This is what having this building is about, is being able to provide for our community and provide for the kids and the youth. And they can see the American dream unfolding before your eyes, overnight success, wink.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? And these kids can see that, and they can know that it's still achievable and attainable, and they're in it, and they're in the building of it, and they're in the structures and the bones and the foundation of it. And you get to be an example of giving back to the community and still helping the kids. Like, dude, that is one of the coolest things. When I saw that, it was like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
When I saw that, dude, that like, it made my night. I was so pumped on that.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And it's, they had a good season. They went farther than our teams have gone in a long time, went to state, won a game, and it was like, they always have awards, kind of after season awards night at the school. And it's, they might have some ice cream or something there, but it's always kind of a little like, just kind of like the same thing over and over. Yeah. And it's not special.
When your daughter is a savage athlete, like basketball is great, but let's talk about throwing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, no, she's crushing it.
Thanks to Bert and Sornex and all those guys, like, and starting to have a better understanding of the throws community and everything that goes into those athletes and the time and effort and energy. Like, the amount of respect that I've gained for the throwing community is just like,
yeah, same here. Between knowing those guys, like you say, with Bert and those guys through Sornex, but then also seeing my daughter compete in and starting to realize like, oh, there's a ton of technique that goes into it. You're not just big and strong. Like, that's part of why she every week is continuing to kind of have these PRs, because she's still like the technique is starting to click.
She's a champion, dude.
It's starting to click. Yeah.
She's a champion. Like, when I was out at Ironwood Throws Camp last summer, cooking for those guys, like getting to watch the youth athletes all the way up to the college level athletes and people that have participated in Olympic athletes, like, blew my mind, and it's similar to what you're talking about, getting to watch that whole community surround itself with great people and build each other up with inside the community, dude. It's awesome.
It's super cool. And it's cool. A lot of people want to bitch about social media and, all the bad stuff that you can find on it if you want. But it's also amazing because kids like my daughters or my son, they can also follow social media for the good stuff, for
the positive. There's a lot of positive.
The role models of whether it's athletes or, even for us to be able to interact with each other. Like, as a knife maker, when I was a kid learning, the only place I ever got to see other knife makers or learn anything was at a show.
At the expo.
4 or 5 times a year, you go to an expo or a show, and you got to interact. But then it was months, if not a whole entire year, between seeing like your heroes, right? But like now, if you're a knife maker or if you're a basketball player or a hunter, if you're like into maybe wanting to cat hunt and you're 17 years old, you can follow this guy.
Yeah.
And you can watch what he's doing. And by the time you're 21 and like, I'm going to get myself a couple dogs, I'm going to do this. There's so much that you can learn from social media and so much that you can use it for that's good. Let's face it. We're sitting in a building that's built off of social media.
Straight up.
We built a company from social media. The American dream, like, you can capitalize and use social media as the most powerful tool. Like, when I was learning to make knives, you had to buy ads. If you wanted to see if you wanted people to see your stuff on any kind of scale, you had to buy an ad in, Field and Stream or in Blade Magazine or something like that.
And that was also when publication was thriving and doing so much better.
It was.
For me, like wholeheartedly, like I want to see magazines come back. You know, I want to see publication come back.
And I think they are, because like I have an Eastman's Journal sitting right over on my table here that's brand new, and Eberly Stock has an ad in it and whatnot. And there's something now. I think it's like retro, like it's coming back, where even young kids like my boy, he's so used to social media. But you get a magazine and you feel those pages and you can flip
the tangibility of it.
Yes, it's special.
Well, and something that I like too, like, you know, look at what Field Ethos is doing, or you know, Eastman's or any of these guys are doing. I think that since 2015, there's a lot of stuff that got watered down, and I'm not trying to attack social media, but through social media and, you know, people that maybe were inexperienced but somehow hit a niche and were able to excel to the top of something where, you know, maybe they were mediocre in the field, you know, then it's, and I'm sure you could probably say same for the knife community, you know, like where somebody excelled very far, very fast because of whatever they had behind them. Well, they were a mediocre blade maker or master bladesmith.
Right.
You know, and you know, I'm not saying that you were angry or anything like that, but watching them grow, and you're trying to make a living, and you're actually like the youngest master blades
right
that's ever exist. You know what I'm saying? So like,
yeah, there's guys that are really good at the marketing stuff, but maybe don't necessarily have the skill behind it to back it up. I will say magazines generally, and this definitely isn't always true.
Yeah, but
magazines are a bit of a filter of generally the people, the editors, and the guys behind the magazines that are putting someone in a magazine are generally doing a little more research and know that someone is.
Well, there's some journalism there.
Yes,
there's some journalism.
The other thing with magazines, and
honesty.
I haven't thought of this until right now, but I look at all I was in magazines a ton as a kid growing up. I mean, almost every month I was in a different magazine of a knife publication.
Because you're a champion overnight success.
Yeah. But what's cool about those magazines, I have like a huge tub in my storage shed right now of all these magazines I was in from 12 years old to like 25.
Why aren't you using those on any of the MKC social media?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure.
I know that you probably don't
should,
like to blow yourself up, but like hand those off to Brandon.
Yeah, I probably should.
And create like.
But there's a couple hundred magazines in there with articles of me as a kid. And I guess what I'm getting at, that's not about me, but what I'm saying is everything that's happened in the last 10 years with social media, it vanishes. It goes away. Like
24-hour news
24-hour, like your Instagram stories, all that stuff disappears. Even your feed becomes cluttered. Like who goes back years with a feed, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe if you deactivate your account and you quit making knives or whatever because you're 65 years old and you retire and you deactivate it and let it go, your grandkids 25, 30 years later they don't see that, right? But like what's cool about that tub of magazines that I've got is it could be 2 more generations and somebody might dig into a tub in a barn and find magazine articles about like their great-grandfather.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just going to full circle this back into Montana Knife Company knives, is that in that same 2-generation cycle, other kids can find their grandparents and great-grandparents Montana Knife Company knives and know that they still have one of the best knives that's ever been in production for hunting outdoors, overlanding, anything that somebody needs. But what's cool is like you're talking about these magazines from when you were a kid, and the product that you've created 30 years later is a direct representation of those magazines and what those magazines can mean down the road.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, it's a cool way to look at it for sure. And I appreciate it, but it's, yeah, so I do think with the magazines now, like that Eastman's magazine that's over there, like there's probably some young guy in there that's 28 that shot a sheep or something, and they probably wrote an article about it or whatever, and they're, it's cool and whatnot, but like a generation or two from now, that guy might be, 80 years old or dead and gone, and there's a grandkid that's going to have that Eastman magazine about this mule deer or this sheep or whatever, and so I do think we're going to see these magazines. And, you know, for most of us, we read those magazines and eventually we pitch them. But there's definitely a group of people, of family members, or, you know, if there's an article in there about our knives or something, you throw that magazine in a tub and you don't even think twice about it. Be like, we're in there. It's kind of cool. We'll throw that in there. Or my buddy's Andy in there cooking. I'll throw this in there. And 20 years later, some kid that's 25 that was 5 at the time pulls this magazine open and starts to read about
and becomes passionate about it.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, it's interesting. I'm with you. I think you even see more. We've talked about it honestly, but you've seen like Stone Glacier, these companies starting to come out again with catalogs. Mm-hmm. You know, you get the new Stone Glacier catalog, and you can actually and it's cool because it is lasting. It can sit there, you know, on the TV stand or the table next to the couch, and you're sitting there watching TV and this show's boring, and you reach over and you grab that Stone Glacier and you kind of are flipping through it, you know, and it lasts. It sits there the whole winter, you know, and you can sit there and refer to it and then finally say, I'm going to order this pack, you know.
I'm going to get this gear.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Gear junkies.
Yeah. But, well, cool. Well, you guys are got to go hunt, right?
We do. So really quick before we do. So I really want to know is when are you booking your first sheep hunt? Because Josh, it's time, man.
I know.
You're not getting any younger.
I know.
And I know that you've been exposed to a little bit, and this year was your first year at Sheep Show, and your booth
That was rad.
Your booth was amazing. Like everything to me, it just seemed like it went perfect for you out there.
Yeah.
I really want to know when you're going to book your first sheep hunt. I also want to know if I can go on it, because
that would be awesome.
I would just love to get to go out on a hunt with you. Like, I don't want to kill anything. I just want to come watch you hunt sheep.
Dude, that would be rad.
Like, sheep hunting is amazing. I really hope that you're going to start getting into it.
Andy's going to book it for you.
Sure. Let's do that.
Give him your card and let's do this now.
Yeah. Dude, I would think by this next sheep show, I'll maybe at the next sheep show, maybe you and I can book it together.
I can't. I won't. After this year, I'm going on so this will be my 13th sheep hunt and my first sheep hunt for myself.
Holy shit.
And I will probably...
And your first one for yourself?
For myself, where I'm pulling the trigger, not either shooting a lens or looking through glass.
What are you hunting?
I'm hunting Dall sheep with canola up in Northwest Territories.
This fall?
This August. Yeah. It'll be my Dall sheep and my caribou. It'll leave me 2 shy of my 10. And after that, I'll have to either do a muskox or a bison and a mountain goat. And then I'll be done with my 10 slam.
That is
for
awesome.
North America, which will be great. I'm really it's interesting looking at the slams and everything that goes into it, but the coolest thing about a 10 or getting your North American 29 is getting to look at the adventures of each one of those specific species, and each one is in such a different direction and such a different animal and a different beast of a hunt in North America. So I'm really excited for that.
Well, and then you expand out to worldwide, like the adventure that you went on last year?
Kyrgyzstan 2 years ago. I mean, I was with you when I was getting all the death threats.
Yeah, it was.
I hadn't even been back for 24 hours.
That's when we were on the back porch doing your podcast.
Yeah.
How are you still doing your podcast?
Last year I put out 14 episodes. I'll probably do maybe another 12 episodes this year, but I'm not really hammered down, focused on it. When I started podcasting, me and my buddy Anthony Cuomo, he now works for SIG Optics. When him and I started doing podcasts together, I mean, we were putting out a podcast every week almost for 3 years straight.
Yeah.
And it was I think, you had Cody Rich, you had Aaron Snyder and the Gritty Bowman. They were still doing their podcast together. Obviously you had Meat Eater, but there weren't many hunting podcasts. And I don't want to say the light got dim for me, but when everybody started having podcasts, and I would approach somebody that I met and be like, hey, let's do a podcast. And they had just done 5 podcasts that would cover the same kind of grounds that we would go over. I was kind of
it's a busy space.
It's a busy space now. It's really diluted, and I love a lot of the podcasts. A lot of them are great. And, but for me, it was just, I lost my intense drive to really do a lot of podcasts.
Well, and it's hard because you travel so much too. It's not easy. I mean, with ours being set up right here, it's kind of handy. You know, especially with like guys like you, like,
Yeah.
you know, this was not planned. I mean, what, yesterday or whatever you call it, like, hey, we're going to be in town. It's like, shit, let's do
Love
a
to come
podcast.
by. Yeah.
Came straight off the mountain.
Yeah. Literally, we were on the mountain.
You guys smell
an
like
hour and a half. I bet.
Probably.
Yeah. Don't let us take our boots off.
Yeah.
It's not going to be good.
Awesome. Well, cool, man. You guys, it's awesome. It's good meeting you.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
Do you have an Instagram that you want people to follow, or do you want to stay hidden?
I don't even know what it is.
Dude, what is your Instagram handle?
Andy will find it.
Andy, what's your Instagram?
My stuff that's like majority of my hunting would just be my personal page, which is just Game Over IG. And then my business for flip-flop cooking, selling sauce and everything like that is at the flip-flop guy.
The flip-flop guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I encourage you guys to go on. You can buy your sauce, order Andy's sauce online.
Yeah.
Is it the flipflopguy.com?
Flipflopguy.co. So I was being extorted for the flipflopguy.com.
Oh, nice.
And finally that guy let it lapse, and I've got it. I've got a new website that's being built, but it's just not done yet. I'm also waiting for a couple other things to land on the back end. I've been in a terrible trademark battle for 3 years, which has completely sucked all my life and energy out of me. Like,
yeah,
it is one of the most defeating things because every week is a new bill for my attorneys, and that sucks, you know, but it's...
Yeah, but it's a battle worth fighting.
It is.
It's
And
your family tradition.
we're supposed to be done any day now, and hopefully they don't see any resemblance from my brand to this brand that has been fighting me the entire time. But yeah, so as soon as that's done and the new website's up and a whole bunch of some other stuff's happening too. So
cool.
Yeah, but right now it's just the flipflopguy.co.co.
Okay. Did you figure out your own
I
Instagram?
found it. It's Brice_S1. Brice with an I.
Okay. Brice with an I.
Yeah.
All right, Brice. Andy, go.
Thanks.
What I'd like you to do is go tree a big bear tonight, and then send me a picture, and we'll put it up at the end of this podcast here of the bear they got that night.
Oh, I got tons of
bear. This last one today was in a great tree.
Yeah,
Was
I
it
got
tree low?
tons of pictures
Awesome.
of him on my
Awesome
camera
photo.
and
Yeah.
a lot of video too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll send
All
it
right.
your way.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Josh.